I think I can hear my
Yeah.
sound in the background.
Oh, okay.
Are you? Do you have any headphones by any chance?
Yeah, I'll grab some now.
Sure. Sound in the background.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think now it's much better. Can you hear me? Awesome. Are you able to hear me? Because I think I lost you. I couldn't hear you anymore.
Can you hear me now, bud?
Yep. Perfect. Brilliant.
Ow, ow!
Awesome. So let's begin. When I was growing up, I struggled to lose a lot of weight. But hey, my story was different because I did live on McDonald's and I did have a lot of pizzas. But most people that I see these days don't. I see long lines in front of salad bars and the cold pressed juiceries. And the treadmills and the elliptical machines at the gym are always full of people. So, why is it that weight loss is such a big challenge? Maybe it's about time that you rethink the advice that you got from your best friend or personal trainer who asked you to run until you might have to go to the doctor for a knee replacement, or eat lower calories until you get brain fog and probably lose your fertility. And that, ladies and gentlemen, isn't a good way to go. So, on this show, you know that I bring you experts from all around the world that teach you how to biohack your life. And today, I have someone special on the show. Today on the show, I have a empowerment expert and a body coach. She's developed online wellness programs, she's spoken at events, she's written recipe books, and she has developed a fantastic system that we're going to talk about. She has industry experience for over 27 years. Naomi Gillespie, welcome to the show.
Hi!
How's it going?
Fabulous, fabulous here in Oz.
Hello to Australia. She's joining us all the way from Australia, guys. And Naomi, tell me, why decide to be an empowerment and a women's coach?
I tell you, that is an absolutely awesome question. I was in the industry for such a long time. I got so over the industry itself, things not working, doing exactly as I was trained to do, and people not succeeding. So there was always these glitches in the system, these missing links. So it came down to the fact that you could correct someone's biology, but if you don't correct their mind, there goes the biology. You could
Mhm.
correct someone's mind and not correct the biology, and they're going to go back to where they started again. So it was always this vicious cycle of not having enough time with people, not getting the results I wanted with just doing what I'm supposed to do in my realm. I had to make myself bigger, learn more things, and step out of the box.
Mhm.
That's what happened.
Okay, and you've come very far from that point. Now, you want people to stop quote unquote dieting for good. But then, if people stop dieting, people will have less Instagram posts all over the world and maybe less friends because it's estimated that we try out different types of diets every year, and different, if it's not a type of diet, it's a branch of diet, and we usually identify ourselves as being carnivore or keto or paleo or vegan, and then we go out with the people with the same kind of like diet or mindset approach. We either connect with them online or offline, and most people's Instagram posts are about food. Do you really want Instagram to suffer?
Oh, I'm so sorry, Instagram. But you know, the greatest thing is you can still
Hmm.
take a million food photos
Hmm.
because food is all those things, right? So people can go on all these diets, but the long-term weight loss isn't where the diet is, as we all know. And getting great results in the long term for life and for your mindset and your ability to not have food issues is not with diets, especially starving and overtraining yourself. So the great thing is if you eat well, if you understand your biology, your DNA,
Hmm.
your genetic makeup, your triggers, you can still take all those beautiful, sexy food photos
Hmm.
because you'll still be eating amazing food. You literally don't have to miss out on anything. You just have to be mindful eating and eat with intent. There's a big difference with just eating and putting things in, with eating for nutritional sake. So lots of people eat just for nutrition, and some people just eat just for happiness, and some people eat because of emotional state. So,
Hmm.
if as humans, we really have to understand the reasons we eat personally, what our belief systems are about food, and what that means in the long term is we can control our weight by controlling our mindset and understanding ourselves emotionally more and connecting with ourselves. And we can take 5 million food photos, even if it's a Big Mac, we can put it
Hmm.
up there still.
Hmm. Well, that answers my question. It's surprising that Did you know that people who consume like content about food and stuff, like people on an average would consume 4 times more content about food. Uh, People who were like into the diets and who were looking out for food, like check Instagram 18 times a day. And the stats that I was looking at in 2019, there were like 250 million posts about food per month.
Yeah,
Can you
I
imagine
would.
that? I would never imagine something like that. It is shocking to me, honestly.
I think the thing, CJ, is because food is so many things to so many people. Food is love. I
Hmm.
express my love with cooking. I
Hmm.
love being in my kitchen and making healthy food, treats, whatever it is. So different, and it makes sense that there's that many posts because lots of times we don't want to show our real life when it comes to
Hmm.
Instagram.
Hmm.
We don't want to see any bad bits. We just want to see the good bits. And food, when you think about it, in the order of things on Instagram and Facebook, it's almost like a filler.
Hmm.
Does that make sense? Like it's
Yeah,
a
it
filler.
does.
So it's less exposing than you as a human exposing yourself emotionally. You'll just take that food photo. Look, I'm having a great time. I'm at dinner. Look at this amazing food. When you're
Hmm.
really sitting at the table, going, "Oh my god, I've got to count the calories, the macros. Should I be
Yeah.
eating this? What am I going to eat when I go out? I don't even know anymore because I'm on this stupid diet again." But
How
it's
many calories I have to
okay.
burn?
Yes, yeah. Oh my God, I have to starve myself tomorrow, but it's okay. I'm starting a new fad diet on Monday. So I'm going to binge all weekend because I'm so stressed out, but it's
Hmm.
okay. My new diet starts on Monday,
I
right?
completely agree with you. Food is so much more. It's about culture. It's about tradition. It's about like getting people together. Like there's just it means so much in different parts of the world. Now, Naomi, you created a system, and I love like the term for it, ladies and gentlemen. It is called the badass beat the bulge system, and you created this system using something called as the meta phase method. Now, normally, whenever I hear the term meta, I get excited because 7 times out of 10, the conversation goes to quantum science and atoms and protons and the energy field. And I found your method to be quite interesting because you've used like dietetics, you've used biological balance, you've used food psychology, and the best of it all is like no exercise plans. And that got my attention at first. Now, I mentioned a lot of words like biological balance, food psychology, dietetics. Can you define those for us? Like what, and tell us what the badass system is? Love the word again.
Yeah. It's bad. Well, it's made for badasses. It's made for those people that just had enough. They've tried everything. They live on the roundabout, that little merry-go-round of weight loss. Training 1.5, 2 hours a day, not looking any different. In fact, getting bigger. Their biggest stress is their weight and therefore their well-being, their body image, their self-esteem, how they perceive themselves, even in the bedroom, sexually gets affected just with food and the size, the human that you are. So we worked out with the metaphase method, lots of research, lots and lots of research. And I
Mm,
found with research, with lots of clinical trials that have been released, lots of articles and papers, yes, they come out with this profound, you know, this profound knowledge that they share with the world. But the problem I find is none of it is actually glued together to find the answer or to make it easier, or where you're not pigeonholed or walking down that white line of just one food plan. So, what we did is we combined many different styles of eating. It revolves around volume, type, and timing. Specific macros, obviously, and calories. It's all done for you. You literally don't have to think. But the food plans rotate every fortnight to every week. It also includes detoxing your body with the metaphase method. So that cyclic eating enables your body to not get used to sort of, your body's sort of like Pavlov's dog. So it becomes accustomed, because we're such adaptogenic organisms. By the
mhm,
time we get through 1 month of food and it's all the same food, same type, same timing,
mhm,
that being accustomed to that food type stops and or slows down that metabolism. It makes your body less efficient because it's become accustomed to that caloric load, macros and timing, etc. So what we've done is we just shake up the metabolism. We utilize different food plans, volume, type, and timing, and we keep changing around to kick the metabolism in the butt.
mhm,
But of course, the other thing we do is we do bring in that psychology of food. We do bring a connection with yourself. And one of the biggest things we've also found is connection with others. If people can be, the face and have this mask, but are they really connected with themselves or others? And this is where they get addicted to food or connected with food and be so ridiculously tight with it that it almost
mhm,
becomes an addiction, because you can be addicted, right, to bad food. But the other problem is, and it's in this day and age, people are actually addicted to good food. So they become so structured and so almost religious about it. They miss out on life. They miss out observing what's going on with them spiritually, emotionally, and mentally. And they just get stuck in the loop. And it's quite sad. And sometimes people just go, but I'm really healthy. But when you observe them, are they really healthy? Because health isn't just what you put in your mouth. Health is about how you feel, your perception of things, understanding your actions and your belief systems around food. Are you a binge eater? Do you eat when you're stressed? Do you eat when you're happy? Do you eat as a reward? Understanding all those things can create freedom from food without the restrictions, without feeling like you're bound to something that you can't get away from. And, oh, well, that one didn't work. I'm going to try this one next week or at the end of the month. Or this new thing, this new plan came on. I'm going to buy that one and see what that one's like. People have, on average, with my client base, up to 8 different food plans that they've bought online, and they've tried on it, all of them, and none of them have worked. So once we understand that neurobiology, you know, in your own mind, biochemically, once you understand your DNA, some people have a genetic taint. They have the FTO gene with the double allele, double SNP, and they've got that, 70% percentile of being obese or
mhm.
overweight. So within that DNA as well, you're either a snacker, not a snacker, you're hungry, you're not hungry, you eat more, you eat less. That's in your DNA. So understanding from the ground level of your DNA, your conditioning in life and your responses to food, and the things that you've learnt about food on your own, if you unravel that, clear it, and connect with yourself, it's amazing how much food you can eat and how much you can love food again, and how much you're not bound but you're free from damn food, right?
I know, right? It just frees you up mentally for so many. Like, I think people spend about 20 to 30 or upwards of 30% of their time thinking about what their next meal is going to be like, and all those things that relate to food, like, is it going to be enough calories, is it going to be healthy, is it not going to be healthy, is it going to be tasty, it is not going to be tasty, and all that uses electrons in the brain. And
Yep.
the moment you rid yourself of that, you have this free surge of energy, which also empowers you in a way to, like, go live your best life, be better at work, be better at being a parent, be, just show up better in life. So completely agree with that. Food in our day and age consumes a lot of our energy load, and that energy could be partitioned well to other things. Now, every time I talk to people and people ask me like for some advice or tips, um, I see people do completely opposite of what is real, because most of the time the fitness industry or the Google search or something like that doesn't give them the complete picture. And you've mentioned this on in your work, and I'm glad you did. But then I have people asking me that, I'll give you a few questions, like, hey CJ, I've been only eating like spinach and kale, like, for the last month or something around like that time. And I'm like, why are you doing that? It's like, because I have to get in a lower caloric load, and that's how, with the caloric deficit, will help me lose weight. And
Oh
because
God.
Google search says that calories are the most important things in your life, what do you tell a person like that?
Stop, just stop, right? So it comes in, right? Stop doing that right now.
Yeah,
Go and eat a burger. No, I'm
yeah.
just kidding. But a burger would probably, carb load for that day. They probably need it.
I mean, if
So
you had
when
like a
you
lettuce wrap or your grass-fed meat burger, you can go
yum,
away with the burger as well.
go for it, right? So this whole calories in, calories out is so old wisdom. It's old news.
Hmm.
Science has passed it. Research has passed that as a fact. Yes, it's a very basic fact. It makes logical sense. If you're going to go and eat 5 pizzas and 3 Big Macs per day, you're going to have a problem, right?
Hmm.
And that's not just with your weight, it's obviously with your health. God. But the whole calories in, calories out thing and going into calorie deficit, when we
Hmm.
think about that and a stress on the body, producing inflammation, affecting how our neurobiology works and reacts with food from that point forward, if we have that chronic low grade stress with starving and resetting our metabolism to become a slow burner. The other thing is in your DNA, some people just cannot do that. They are, carb humans and they need high caloric loads and high carb loads to function, or they get, secondary disorders, brain fog, bad
Hmm.
decision making. They can even have really extreme stuff like balance disorders, fertility issues, that sort of stuff. But when it comes down to that whole calories in, calories out, one, it's wrong because we're all different.
Hmm.
Two, it comes down to your DNA. Three, it comes down to your energy output and what you do in the day. Four, it comes down to any autoimmune dysfunction and pro inflammatory disorders in your body, or secondary diseases like thyroid issues that naturally slow down your metabolism. We have
Hmm.
to look at the body like a furnace. You have to feed the furnace to keep the fire going. And as soon as we shut down and we don't keep putting coals in there, then the furnace goes out. And that's where people, from the first time they've gone into that starvation mode with really low calories, it's actually from that instance that they've reached or they've started to produce what we call a set point. It's the point that your body feels the safest at, the most natural at. And when you lose your weight, that's where your body will go back to in a really short period of time. So that
Hmm.
whole calories in, calories out isn't okay. We all need to understand our body types, our genomes, our DNA, our caloric load, our basal metabolic rate. Very
Hmm.
simple things that can be investigated or found out from health practitioners, or even getting certain body scans done. You can get that information. So it's really important to understand that calories in, calories out is not the be all end all. Yes, it does make sense to a degree, but there are so many elements beyond that that affect you as a human that can make you a success or a failure.
Hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. I call it the invisible factors that surround our
Yes.
health and biology. Because most of the
Yeah.
times you can look at a food and be like, yeah, it's tangible and it's visible. And that is all that matters to you when you go get on a treadmill or you exercise. That hard work is somewhat tangible. And you're like, you know what? I'm working hard, so I might be healthy. But then, you can
Yeah.
get into DNA. You can look into methylation pathways. You can look
Yep.
into electromagnetic fields. You can look into like these constant or like I would say chronic low grade inflammation that you mentioned. Switching on these inflammatory pathways, your immune health. There are
Yep.
just so many of these things, but just because we can't see them or most people can't wrap their heads around it, they ignore it. But I would go as far as saying that yes, it's good to exercise because we know that it also, it boosts up so many genes and pathways, but it's also important to just take care of your health from a holistic standpoint, and that would
Yeah.
give you the most bang for your buck. Like if you're not sleeping right, chances are you're not going to lose so much weight, because like we know that just sleeping enough, it elevates like growth hormone, it elevates so many other things. It helps you like relax, so you are not in a constant fight or flight or sympathetic nervous system activation. Yeah, so
Yep.
just things like that. It's like very important that we put out that information in front of people. And normally people will come up to me and then they're like, I have to lose that weight because I have to go to a wedding party, I have to go for vacation. And some of them like struggle themselves and they do lose some weight to get to that
Yep.
point. Most of the people will go to that place and come back gaining even more weight because they have just overindulged themselves. But there are
Yep.
also people who, I know some people who are kind of serious about it. So even when they're going to that party, they're making sure they're eating less and then they are working out. But guess what? When all of that thing is over, they also get that weight back. So I love the point that you mentioned about a person's set weight, and how no matter what you do, if you're not like really managing that set weight right, your body naturally gravitates to get onto that weight again.
Yep. And that's a problem.
Yeah, and then it's just like different cycles in life, right? We're like losing weight, gaining weight, and then it's easier for people to lose weight in the beginning, but then these other impacts come in, like age. With
Yep.
age, if you're not detoxing well, you have this other buildup of toxins in your cells, and then they slow down the energy or the Krebs cycle, and everything changes according to that. So I like that you've touched on those things. The next big thing that not many people talk about when it comes to the conventional fitness and diet industry is a conversation that you've created, which is about hormones. So you've obviously so much about them, and you've mentioned things like DHEA, cortisol, ghrelin, leptin, and all of those things in your protocol. Can you walk the listeners through on why hormones are important, and like what do like the hunger hormones or the satiety hormones, and how does like different food groups impact them?
Yep. So with this happens to men as well. Obviously, you guys drop
Mhm.
testosterone, increase your so you drop your
Yes.
androgens,
Yeah,
increase your estrogen, right?
yeah.
So what we do is the opposite, and we also drop our progesterone. The other problem that we have as we get older, we naturally produce more cortisol. Unfortunate but
Mhm.
true. It's just a part of aging, and that's fine if we understand that. So quite often from 35 above, we are a bit less carefree and we do have more responsibilities and we've got, different bills to pay and we're thinking about, children and families and all this crazy stuff that seems just like normal life, but in actual fact, is quite stressful to the human body as a biome. It stresses
Mhm.
us out. So it stresses out our adrenal cortex, our nervous system, and our brain biochemistry shifts. All of these things have a bearing on our weight. So when our hormones naturally start to shift, our gonadal hormones at the age of 35, 36, that's when we notice in women and men that middle age spread.
Mhm.
That they say is age. But if we have a stressful life on top of that, we're going to have a bigger middle-age spread. Do we get that prednisolone still with that cortisol, and that just shifts all our hormones to not being okay, to decreasing our metabolism. That in turn affects our thyroid, slows down its function. There goes our metabolism. And when we're our body, not just our mind or our spirit, is under chronic long-term stress, we naturally shift our neurobiology. So therefore, we're shifting the things that make us hungry, that make us full, that make us not snack as much, and that
Mhm.
switch off, and where we have more control of volume of food and more control of when to know when to stop eating it. So with that ghrelin and leptin shift, because of stress responses, lack of sleep, lack of ability to absorb nutrients, or not eating the right food, There's a genetic component, that's a given. But once we blow those things out of the water, we naturally eat more. We naturally put weight on. We can't stop eating. Then we feel guilty. So what happens next? Well, the next thing that gets affected is your neurobiology. So with that whole factor of eating too much food, feeling like you're bigger, your hormones are out of control, you can't sleep right, you feel like you're putting on weight on the midriff, you feel like you're getting old, you're naturally going to increase neuroexcitatory, your stress hormones, stress neurotransmitters, and you're going to naturally drop your neuroinhibitory, the good guys like
Mhm.
GABA. You're going to
Mhm.
affect your serotonin, you're going to affect your dopamine. So once you affect those guys, one, if you're a binge eater or like eating, you know, when you're sad or
Mhm.
angry or frustrated or guilty, you're going to eat more. But the secondary thing is with our neurobiology, under chronic low grade stress or biological changes that create stress, you affect that dopamine. So there's that little reward center. And that's aside from the ghrelin and the leptin that make us
Mhm.
eat more and don't tell us we're full. This little reward center is going to be like, hey, you need that Big Mac. Keep eating all the lemon tart. Have some profiteroles. It's fine. Eat the rest of the chips on the plate. Even though you're full, you know you want them. You deserve it. And that's where that little old dopamine creeps up and everything gets blown out of the water. People do it often. I go on
Mhm.
a diet. I can't control myself. I have this physical urge, and it's a physical urge they have to fight like it's an addiction, like it's a drug, like it's alcohol addiction. It's not any different with food. So once those start to get corrupted and not do their job right, once those pathways and messages don't get sent, then we have really big issues. And this is the problem with hormones. People believe hormones, we just go testosterone, estrogen, DHEA, progesterone, woohoo! But that's not just hormones. We're talking thyroid hormones. We're talking about 80% of the function in the human body is hormone dependent. The emotions you feel and what you express to other humans, the human that you are, is hormone reliant. And if our hormones aren't okay and balanced, we're not okay and balanced. And it's quite evident in the world as it stands. It's like, oh, it's just my hormones. Well, that means you're not okay. How do you fix that? And what are they going to do about that? And you can control it with food, as you know, how dependent hormones are on specific nutrient types. And that's all well and good, but we have age, it's natural. People fight that. They don't like getting old. People have stress, they don't acknowledge it. That makes them put on weight. So it's this whole component of like everything is everything, because if everything is everything, then we have nothing. And that's an issue, especially when it comes to weight.
Mhm. I really like that you mentioned about the emotional factor of it, because most of the times, if you aren't getting therapy or you don't have someone to confide in, then chances are many people are suppressing their emotions. And what happens is people just think that, what, I'm just going to keep it to myself and keep it to myself. And it's like a glass of water. And I would say it's like a glass of water. So every time you fill that glass up, there comes a point where the water overflows, and when this overflows translated into your body, then you have all these hormonal issues, because we know that we've seen evidence. Western science is just coming up to it right now, but we have evidence in ancestral sciences, like you can take about the 5,000-year-old Indian Ayurvedic system, or you can take the traditional Chinese medicine system that also tells us that if you have like an organ failure or you have an organ dysfunctioning, every organ in the traditional Chinese medicine is connected to a certain kind of emotion. So, fear, anger, jealousy, rage. You'd have, the emotions of not being good enough. Just by having that and repeating, and we know, like you mentioned from neurobiology, that neurons that wire together fire together. So every time you go into this repetitive thought process of saying, oh, you know what, I'm not good enough, or you know what, that's okay, I'm gonna eat it now and then I won't eat it later, you're strengthening the neurocircuitry. And every time that neurocircuitry becomes strengthened, it's much easier for your brain to tap into that pathway. And this is why addictions also, I mean, you can get addicted to your thoughts, you can get addicted to that fight or flight response. And I love that you mentioned about these neurotransmitters like dopamine, serotonin, and others. And I think one of the things that we're facing highly as a society right now, even apart from food, is that our dopaminergistic energy system is being hijacked. So, what do I mean by hijacked? It means that people who are, we mentioned social media earlier. Every time you go onto social media, you get a like, you share something, someone comments on you. That actually enhances your dopamine response. And then, you want to be out all the time and you don't want to spend time by yourself. So, you're always being stimulated by people, places, events. And then, you take all of those things out of a person's life and suddenly it becomes boring. People start feeling lonely. And, then we have the onset of depression and all of these other things that are going on in the world right now. And it all happens because evolutionary science have shown us this, that, we're not meant to be stimulated all the time by the news, by social media, by like going out. I mean, I'm not saying that going out and being with people is a bad thing, because I think one of the biggest anti-aging hacks that you can do, apart from figuring out your genetics, is like being a part of a community. So talking to people, getting onto the dinner table together, doing something for a cause that elevates it just downregulates inflammation, it upregulates all these anti-aging pathways in the body. But then if you overdo it and you don't have the time to spend with yourself, that creates your body is so accustomed to this high level of dopamine circulating that now, looking at the trees isn't going to give you any, it doesn't give you happiness. Having 100 comments doesn't give you any happiness because you're always shooting for 200. So in your life, in your practice, and like all the things that you've come across, have you figured out a way to kind of reset dopamine? Like, is it through a dopamine fast? Like, I used to go on a dopamine fast where I would not see the TV and I would not see Instagram, like, a social media fast rather, where for 1 or 2 days I'd just leave everything. And then suddenly you start, interacting with the environment around you. And then, you go for a walk and you're like, wow, that flower looks so nice. So have you figured out something like that?
I get my people to often, like, I shut them down. They've got a regime that they follow at night in reference to their sleep. So we get the correct sleep, get the correct sleep cycles. So their body slows down, shuts down, and that includes shutting down from electrics, obviously. But
Mhm.
the other thing that we do is um, rather than looking externally for hits, right?
Mhm.
So rather than looking for a hit externally, it's about going internally. So it's about understanding what upregulates your stress, right? What makes you go in even a chronic low grade stress that you don't even realize there because it's just part of your life. We get them to reconnect with themselves. We get them to go on simple things like gratitude walks. So they go outside, no electrics, and they do their mantras, simple things, just simple things that bring you back down to earth and create gratitude. So just being mindful and looking out. And it is simple things, like you were saying, like it is simple things like not even, we don't have to go and hug trees, but we should really notice them more. We should
Mhm.
notice the flowers instead of stepping over them. We should notice different birds where we live. We should just check out what the clouds look like today. So just down regulating that high cortisol response, just by appreciating and having gratitude and being mindful with intent on your walk is a really good way to get hits that aren't from an external source. It's where we're internalizing the hits that you become proud of yourself, where you look at your scripting, you pull it apart, and you start being kind to yourself. So that those hits from the external sources to your dopamine receptor aren't going to be so hardcore if you know you're awesome, if you know you're a good person, you're kind and you're generous and that you're loved and you have a place in the world that has meaning. Does that
Mhm.
make sense? So
Yes, that does.
that's what we do with Badass to start to shift people's internal scripting that starts to naturally increase their neurobiology to make it more positive rather than that stress response negative.
Hmm. I
Yeah.
That's brilliant. I also, when you spoke about gratitude walk, one of the things that I sometimes do, and I always recommend people to do, is that if they're feeling upset or sad, or things aren't looking the best way, and you could do this when you go for a walk, or even if you're like in the mall or at any busy place, you can play, like, set a timer on your phone and play the gratitude game. So the way I mean, there might be different versions of it, but the one that works for me the best is that, so you put a timer on your phone for 5 minutes, and no matter where you are, you look at something and then you think of a reason to be grateful for it. So, perfect example, you get into the mall and you see an escalator, and then you thank all the people who've done the hard work. So, like, older people can easily climb from one floor to the other. You don't have to pick up heavy loads and like take the stairs, and then you say your gratitude for one thing, and then you look at the lights, and then you feel grateful that with the lights we're able to see in the dark, and like now we can light our environments, we can have all these social gatherings in the dark. And then you look at something else, you look at your phone maybe, and then you'd be like, the phone, I'm so grateful for my phone because this allows me to communicate with the outside world, and I can always be reached. And if every time I'm not safe or I'm scared or whatever, I can reach out to a friend. And then you keep on building from it, and very soon you realize that 5 minutes seems like a minute or like 30 seconds. And once you get out of this, you're just like, your emotional stability is so high at that point, because you just realize everything in your current environment that is great. And yeah, that's a good hack for anyone who wants to use it. I go every day on a walk with my dog first thing in the morning. And before, I used to listen to like some mantras and music and things like that. But now what I do is, like, I just don't take any electronics with me. And then I'm walking with him, and I've started to notice things around. I see the color of the leaves. I see how strong the sun is. I hear the birds chirping. And that by itself grounds me into the present moment that you were talking about. So I'm so happy that you shared this with everyone, because I think, you can look at these pharmaceuticals that can upregulate dopamine and things like that. But then, if you could just do this one simple thing, and it's for free and it's accessible everywhere in the world, things will start changing.
That's
And
right, CJ.
when I was going through your program, the badass program, you mentioned you like cooking, and you have these recipes which are specific to that program. And then you have divided that recipe books into phases. So you mentioned before, the phase one might be detox and transformation, phase two is burning it up, and phase three is a metabolic shake. So can you walk us over like what each phase? I mean, it's pretty evident from the name, but like, is there some things that the learners or the listeners can learn from this?
The greatest thing you can do for your body is to basically, well, be a badass and shake stuff up. So your body and you don't get bored, you don't get accustomed to things, you don't
Hmm.
have leftovers. That's another one. You go shopping, you get your food prep done. So what we do in the different phases. So for instance, phase one, what we've done, we've just worked out specific macros in phase one. And what we've done is given you three main meals and two snacks.
Hmm.
There's up to 7 days of that where you do a pure juice or a juice and fruit juice and soup detox, or you have white fish and vegetables and some juice or soups. So in that 7 days, that's where you're just doing a clean out, and it's just an express detox. You're not taking supplements.
Hmm.
Then for the rest of the time in phase one, you're getting your body, and I call it food training. I get people into food training. It's where they're starting to remember, to learn, to food prep, to cook in advance, to freeze if you have to. Not very often, but if you have to, because you're busy, that's fine. But getting into a regular eating cycle. Most people forget to eat, maybe eat twice a day, skip breakfast, don't snack, and it naturally decreases their metabolism. So phase one, we actually get them to have higher volumes of food
Mhm.
over 5 times in the day. The second phase is where we actually get them onto different macros again. And in this phase, they're only eating 3 times a day. And in this phase, they're having bigger caloric loads per meal. The next phase, phase 3, that's where we put people on into an intermittent fasting phase, but very specific macros. And in that phase, they're having 2 meals, 1 snack, or 2 meals, 2 snacks if they're hungry. Then we have another phase, and it's called the set point shifter phase. And it's where if you find as your body starts to lose weight and your metabolism starts to work for you, not against you, your hormones start to re-regulate and work for you, not against you. The last thing that we want is your body to start backtracking and get stuck on a point. So I have a set point shifter phase as the fourth phase, that if people are stuck on a point, we pop them on this specific phase and they shift through the set point. Their body weight decreases. We create a new set point that is lower, and then we take it from there. Then what we do is we cycle back to phase 1, detox, and we keep going. So we keep shocking the metabolism. We keep correcting hormones. We keep stabilizing ghrelin and leptin and balancing dopamine, and making sure throughout that they understand biology, they get functional medicine testing done or whatever they need that's destined for them, so that they get the results in the long term, their weight stays off, and they have a different set point that is now not high but low.
That's brilliant. While you were walking me through this, I'm just like trying to get my head around it and imagine, and I can see how you're going with this. And with every time, you're cycling through different things, and your body is in a constant state of like you said, the adaptogenic response. And
Yeah,
every time that happens, your body is kind of like struggling back to get that homeostasis. But then after cycling with these three, or like let's say four with the phase shift cycle, your body already knows that it wants to be at that point, and then you recycle it back. And this is where I see most of the diets go wrong, because
yes,
they always it's not cyclical. It's always like, oh, get from one point to the other point and you're done, and that's it. Like, close the PDF, like just go on with your life. But I
yeah,
like the fact that you've incorporated the cyclical approach, because with everything in, when you look at let's talk about metaphysics and energy and everything like that, everything in life happens in a cycle, right?
exactly.
It's day and night, yin and yang, sun and moon, everything happens in a cycle. And then the more you adhere to that natural rules of nature, things will start, in your biology also, things start shifting. So thanks for wrapping your head around it, because I haven't seen many people or many approaches that take this. And again, one of the other things that you mentioned was functional testing, which I
Yeah,
also advocate for,
yeah,
because your mind plays a bigger role in all of these processes. And you might just feel like you're there's a willpower, and then there's motivation, which is intrinsic, extrinsic motivation, and then there's discipline. But then when you combine all of these things together, your mind might be not giving you the right picture, and you have to get that right picture from either getting like a genetic testing done, or like looking for your thyroid status, or just looking at other factors like methylation and things like that. So I love that you're going into that realm of things which is unexplored, or not many people are talking about. What's your take on exercise?
I love exercise, don't get me wrong, CJ, but there's exercise like basically what's the saying, different horses for different courses. So
Mhm.
genetically, we're almost branded for a specific type of exercise in our DNA, and it's quite evident. So when you get your genomic testing done, it gives you very specifics as to what type of exercise you should do, what type of muscle fibers you have, your potential for injury, how you need to cover, even to the point with DNA testing, whether you should stretch more than other humans. So exercise type comes down to your DNA. The thing that I don't love people doing with exercise and trying to lose weight is doing exercise they don't love. Don't do it.
Mhm.
If you don't love it, don't do it. Why? You won't keep doing it. People need to find something. They could be jumping around in the lounge room with a hairbrush. They could be doing Zumba. They could be going salsa classes. They could just run around their house 50 times. Whatever the thing is as exercise that makes them happy, great. If you can investigate that more so you truly understand what exercise is best for you, even better. And that's where that DNA profiling comes in specifically to get the results that that you want from your food plan, the results that you working so hard for. If you're doing the wrong type of exercise or doing it for too long, then you will not get the results that you're looking for. That's an absolute given. And quite often we're told just work harder. Like I have so many patients that go to the doctors and they're just told eat less and train harder. Well, these people are already training for an hour and a half today a day and lifting heavy weights. The problem is, one, they may be training too long, or two, they've got a body type that's made to do HIIT because of their muscle twitch fibers, because of their muscle typing, and because of their genetic metabolism and that FTO gene. So
Mhm.
it's so important to look at exercise, but combine it with functional testing and your spirit, what you love. People need to do what they love and not see exercise as a chore, but a pleasure. People can exercise every day. It's super if they do. I would love that. Some people hate it. They don't do it. So how do we work around that? So that's the reason we've done badass for those people. But we've also done badass for people that are full on exercise lovers and gym junkies, but just weren't getting the results. So exercise is brilliant. Think like you and I, CJ, could sit here honestly for an hour and talk about the benefits of exercise. They're we don't even know them all yet.
Mhm.
So exercise is super duper important, but it's about finding the one that you love that matches you genetically and the one that you're going to keep doing.
Mhm. Two things that I can think about when you were saying this was that, okay, if you wanted to go in the whole biohacking realm, then you can get a genetic testing done and get some functional tests, and you can figure out, you have type 1 muscle fibers, type 2A, type 2B, what's your actin and myostatin status, all of those things, and that will give you a better idea. But most of the people won't do it because A, it might be expensive, it might not be in their country, and it's just a hassle. What is the other thing that I loved? And I think that fundamentally, all humans are more lazy than active. At every point of time, our biology, the evolution, has shaped us in a way to store a lot of energy. It comes from, when you look at cellular biology and like you see the mitochondria and how that works, it's designed to store energy and use it for a time that might actually need it. But with the advent of everything becoming so easy and convenient and things like that around the world, we don't require like so much amount of energy. And what happens is when you ask a person, like an average person, because the guys, I love going to the gym and I love working out and things like that. But the average person who loves doing all of that, again, their motivation factors are different. And there's often some things that have been done in their life earlier. Like for me, it was because, I got bullied in school and I had like this obesity pattern and things like that. And I thought I wasn't good enough. So I had to exercise and I had to get big and I had to show off in front of the world. And it started off like that. Now I started to love it, but there is always something in the back which we're overcompensating for. But the average person is not like that. So if you ask the average person, hey, there's this cool show on Netflix, and like, do you want to watch it or do you want to like go and run outside? 9 times out of 10, people will choose Netflix, and that is because we are designed to store that energy. But saying all of that, do I say that people are not going to exercise? No, but it gets back to your point of doing something that you really love. Because if you can find something like people are doing CrossFit and they hate it. Like I have people who keep telling me that I have to go to the gym and it's just like that and I don't want to do it. But that same subset of people if you ask them to do like some kind of a martial art training, or you ask them to, go on a hike, or you ask them to do something that puts their mind in a state of flow, mind and body, I would say, in a state of flow, where they lose the like they lose the concept of time because they're loving the dance, or they're loving walking, or they're just cycling throughout the city to see new things. That is also a type of exercise. And I love that you mentioned that, you can go the biohacking way, or you can just ask yourself, what makes time disappear for me? What makes me get into a flow state where I'm so present in the moment that I forget about everything else? So anyone who's listening to this, the concept of a traditional gym did not even exist like a couple of 100 years ago. But it is evident that if you want to enhance your health, wellness, biology, and if you want to live for a long time, which I'm a fan of, longevity, you can see people around the world. There are geographical areas around the world which are called the blue zones. And what are blue zones? These are areas where people are living healthier and longer than everyone else. And when you go to the blue zones, like it could be Sardinia, it could be Loma Linda in US, there are so many, Okinawa in Japan, you will see that 99% or maybe 99.9% of the people who are living for such a long time, they aren't going to a formal gym. But what they are doing is that they're holding someone's hand, maybe even when they're 80, and taking a walk. They're cycling with their friends. They're doing, and this is the lowest hanging fruit. So in exercise physiology, we have something called as NEAT, which is non-exercise activity thermogenesis, which is basically you walk into the grocery store and you parking your car like, a few lanes behind, or like few meters behind the mall, and taking a walk in sunshine, or walking your dog. And this is what's going to make the most amount of change, because we know from research that going and doing a CrossFit workout for an hour a day and killing yourself and then sitting on your ass for like the rest of the day is not going to help you out. It just doesn't work. Your metabolism doesn't work that way. But if you find reasons to do something like, take a coffee with a friend and like walk around and like go watch the sunset and things like that, that will affect your biology more. So exercise is great, but don't limit yourself to going to the gym and doing something which is the society has, I would not even say the society, which marketing has shown you, because you see the best looking people and they're going to the gym. Yeah, but they're doing a lot of other things that you're probably not going to do. But look at people who are really healthy, and look at people who've really like, who are more natural, and, take that way. Now, um, thanks for mentioning all of that. You also you're also a part of Abundance Health. And
Yeah.
now, one of the things that there are so many supplement manufacturers around the world, so many. Some are great, and I really respect the research and the work that they've done. And then there are some who are probably not, I mean, I'm not so convinced. So when it comes to choosing a company that you can trust into, there are other things that, companies have advertised, like being certified organic and, using science-based evidence and things like that. How much does that matter when you're choosing a person or a company or a group of values to trust?
I think actually, CJ, because we started our nutraceuticals company, I think it's actually everything. Having that component that there's something behind the company, that there's an
Mhm.
intent, a belief system, something that it's not just about selling a product, it's actually about selling a lifestyle that has a positive benefit to not just that person, but to everyone around them, their families, the people they love the most, and having an ethical product that does something that's not just a bag of stuff that's the same as everyone else's stuff with a really big markup when it's really not worth that much. So when it comes to quality of product, I'm a real stickler for that, and I always have been ever since I started my career. I'm very pedantic about the companies that I utilize for my patients and get and script them, get their medicine for. I'm very pedantic about that. It has to be an ethically based company. It has to give back, but it has to have great ingredients and, of course, perfect science, because science is magic. Science can change humans' lives. If we can get that right in something that has an ethical and sustainable basis that has an influence on mindfulness and people's spirit and their mindset, I think it's magic. I think that's a magic ingredient right there.
Brilliant. And I completely agree. Research on the company that you're buying from, research on, if they have any CSR practices, research on their content, just see where they're getting their information from and what they stand up for. Because selling is a great thing, but like selling without a purpose can sometimes distract you from the route that you're taking, which is
Yeah.
when it comes to when it comes to nutraceuticals or when it comes to health, the end goal should be to look after a community or a group of people who want to be better than what they are at this point. So bang on.
Yeah.
I love what you said. And are there, this year or last year, are there any new biohacks or any things that you've been including in your life, like that have really pushed the bar a little bit? It could be certain supplements.
Yeah.
It could be like an approach to different things. I just want to know, what is something new that's come up in your life that you're sticking on to now?
I have I've just started immersion therapy. So doing getting into really, really freezing cold water
Mhm,
where you swear to God you're about to go into hypothermia
mhm,
to challenge your mind and your body at the same time.
mhm,
I went out with some friends the other day into the ocean, and it was quite choppy, and it was just rips everywhere. It was an absolute mess, and
mhm,
it was a challenge just to get out there, let alone come back in absolutely freezing water to challenge my body, but to
mhm,
challenge my mind. I can keep going. I've got this focus on the cold, focus on the cold. So that's one little thing that I've started to do. And of course, I do a lot of in the last year with COVID, getting back into boxing and hit my favorite things,
nice.
boxing and hit. I love it. But the thing that I've done recently is really gotten into, as you know, CJ, is our protein supplements. So I've
Mhm,
had protein supplements my entire life. So ever since I was about 17, I started taking proteins and going to the gym, and I've done fitness comps and that sort of stuff. And I just found it almost what's the word? It's almost like a hollow, um, it's almost like a hollow business at times when you go in and just see this wall of these supplements
mhm,
that's become so um, generic and
mhm,
almost meaningless. There's no essence behind them. They're just a bucket of stuff that's
mhm,
full of stuff that's generally not to a therapeutic dose, that may not be healthy for you. And I don't see the logic in taking something to be healthy that's not healthy. Does that make
mhm.
sense?
Yes, it does.
So, my biggest thing was to not be annoyed at them anymore, let me tell you, but to actually create one. And that's what we did, CJ. That's where we've created our protein powder that actually does something. So it feels like it is a whole product, that you're saving money, not spending money, that the components in there have a biological action, and the volumes of all the ingredients are to a therapeutic dose. So what we're trying to do, like, that's what I've started to do, CJ, is actually basically invent something that I wanted to take
Mhm,
because it did something. Because I
mhm,
was sick of taking stuff that did nothing. There's more to life than slogging down a protein powder and crossing your fingers that it's doing something, because you don't really feel much and you
mhm,
generally don't see much.
mhm,
So that's why we've brought in our protein powder with all our vitamins, minerals, all our herbs. I put amino acids in there, digestive enzymes, probiotics, prebiotics, you name it, it's in it. And it's a
mhm.
whole
Wow.
product that's not super duper expensive. You know what I mean? Some of the
Yeah.
stuff I see, honestly, CJ, I'm very I'm very honest with business. So people always say in business you should be this and that and cutthroat. I'm actually have always been the opposite, and I've run businesses since I was in my teen years. And being ethical and being on point and feeling like that you're aligned with your values and your morals. When stuff's too much or overpriced, I see it as stealing. I don't like that. That's stealing. It's dishonest.
Mhm,
So we developed our protein powder so it's an honest product.
mhm,
It's not overpriced. It's not taking advantage of people and what they don't know and their ignorance with flashy marketing. It's actually just stating clear, concise facts and just
Mhm.
pure science in a really cool combo. So that's actually my biohack. I know it's my thing, but the reason that I did it was because I was sick of the other stuff that did nothing.
Yeah, it's as they say, the quote, necessity is the mother of all inventions. And if you look at all the greatest inventions that has come in the world, it's because a group of people, or like a large population of people, were just struggling to get something done. And then there comes one person into the mix, and they're like, "Hey, you know what? We're struggling with this for the longest period of time, and we've got to do something about it." So the entrepreneurial mindset says, or even the inventor mindset says, it's not there, but doesn't matter because we'll make it. And I love that you have that kind of a mentality, and you're not just looking at things and saying, oh, you know what, we're not blessed to have this and we're not have to bless that, but you're actually taking actions, and you're like, what can I do right now that's going to provide the most amount of impact to others and to myself? So, cheers for doing that. And with protein, it's like so funny because protein industry is a multi billion dollar industry, which eventually just started off as, it's just a waste product. So, for people who are listening,
Yeah,
uh,
yeah.
back in the day, there were the milk industry and the cheese industry were like, were just were doing all their things, and then they would just find this waste product called whey, which was just like this liquid on the top of like yogurts and things like that, and they were just dumping a lot of them. And then one person comes along and says like, hey, we're dumping all this waste product, but let's see what's inside that. And then some genius figured it out that it could be converted into something called as protein or whey protein. And there you go, they presented it to the world, and now it's like one of the biggest industries in the world. But what people do not understand, and I met with a friend yesterday, and this friend of mine, he's quite young, so I see him more like, he sees me more like a mentor. So we catch up from time to time, and I give him advices on things. And he's vegetarian,
Oh, yeah,
um,
yeah.
and he's just got so many, he's just struggling to put on some muscle mass and things like that. And
Oh,
we were on this conversation of having protein, and he's like, yeah, I'm having like whey protein and so much of it. But what the general public doesn't know, that protein actually breaks down into something known as amino acids, and there is a specific utilization rate, which the professionals call it amino acid utilization, of how much protein or amino acid, which is a building block of protein, that you can absorb from, let's say, a steak or your protein powder. And what is surprising, and I interviewed Dr. Minkoff from Body Health about this, and he told me that the actual absorption rate of your regular whey protein is 13%. So, everyone who's listening, think about this for a moment. You've been spending so much of money in using, just getting your standard protein, and now you're having like 25 grams of it, or like 50 grams of it, let's say 25, right? And then you're only getting 20 grams of protein because then there is the sweeteners and the maltodextrin and like all those other things. But out of that 20 grams of protein, you're only absorbing 13%. My math isn't very good, but like if your math is good, do the numbers. Uh,
yeah.
you know, it's less. But what you've done, Naomi, is that you've added functional things to it. So we know that vegan protein powders are missing essential amino acids, like some essential amino acids, and that's why having vegan protein doesn't like completely help you out because you're missing those blocks of amino acid. But the moment you add amino acids to a vegan protein, which is separate from like the protein itself, it changes the bioavailability, the
Yeah.
absorption rate, and how much you can utilize all of that. And then you've added digestive enzymes, or these, and for someone who's listening, these digestive enzymes, as we age, our digestive enzymes go less. There is a genetic component to it. It's basically how well, even if you're eating a lot of protein, do you really know if it's digesting? Apart from that 13%, then comes enzymes like trypsin, pepsin, all of these other enzymes that help amino acids. So even if you're eating a lot of protein and if you don't have the amino acids right, the digestive enzymes right, you're not going to absorb it. Then the other thing that you've mentioned is like you're adding vitamins to it, because we know when a person time that they're insulin sensitive and everything that they eat can be shuttled into their cells much faster. We're using protein to kind of like regrow the muscle. Why not add some vitamins to it? Because
Yep.
the more it works on a cellular respiration and cellular energy. So leaving the muscles apart, leaving everything else apart, you get a boost on all of these things. So, and mentioned, you've offline, you mentioned that you've put some short chain level, which a lot of people in the process, like most of us are eating processed food and they don't get it. So your whole approach and recommending it to the people in my community. And now we've been talking, and this interview I could keep on talking to you for like not hours but days, because we have the same kind of vibe, and everything is going good. But for the sake of time,
Yeah.
we're having to end to today's interview. And my last question to you is, if you were put on your imagining hats for a moment, if you had a chance to get a time machine, and if you could go back time and you could go back to a point of time, let's say maybe when we were 20 years old, 25, 30 years old, and then you could tell your younger self maybe one, two, three, I don't know, but at least one piece of advice, which is not buying Bitcoin, but something else. Because that's what all the people say. They're like, I would have bought Bitcoin. But if you could give yourself one piece of advice, knowing all that you know right now, things that you have learned, from the people you love, from the people you have trained, the science and nutrition, and even your life. So it doesn't have to be limited to, taking digestive enzymes or things like that, carb cycling, just generally in life. What would be
Yeah.
that piece of advice that you would give your younger self?
I'm very simple, CJ. I would actually tell my younger self, slow down, have gratitude, look around a bit more and appreciate everything you've got. And last but not least, don't be mean to yourself. The
Mm,
meanest person to us is actually ourselves. And I wish a long, long time ago that I learnt that and I could have changed the scripting that I
mhm,
had when I was 20 to the
mhm,
scripting that I have now, because no one is meaner to us than ourselves.
mhm.
So I just be
That's
say,
brilliant.
just have, shift my script and be a
Yeah.
bit more kind to me and not a
Don't
big
have the
meanie.
don't have that self-sabotage script that most of the
Yeah,
people are having at this point, which honestly doesn't do much. And then the older you get, you realize that, hey, you know what? All that thing actually slowed me down. So
yeah,
right on point. If the listeners want to find you, they want to check out your work, they want to check out that protein powder, what's
yeah.
the best way to get in touch with you? Or what's is it your website? Is it Abundance Health?
You can, if you need to speak to me, you can go to badassbeatthebulge.com and that will give you some information on our system. Our protein powder and our nutraceuticals company, we've got 4 products at the moment. We've got another 3 coming out soon. It's
Wow.
Opt4. Yeah, stoked. Opt4.com.au. I like inventing things, CJ. I like
It's
inventing
the
things.
best thing. I when you know so much and like you're able to see through the rabbit holes of like other things and like products. I think we need more people like you in our lives that take
That's
that step
awesome.
and be like, because it's something that you love and it's something that you've learned. You have so much of experience and expertise to seeing what works and what doesn't work. So hooray, we have a few more products coming in. And everyone who's listening, that is it for today. Me and Naomi be on the call because we'll chat offline. But for all of you guys, this was it. Naomi, I thank you for all the great work that you've done, all the lives that you've touched, all the ideologies and the products that you've invented. I really appreciate that. And I really appreciate you being on the call today.
Thank you, CJ. I appreciate you.
You're welcome. And this is me, everybody, CJ, who's signing off right now from Shift with CJ podcast. Everyone, have an energetic day, a week, a month, a lifetime, multiple lifetimes ahead of you. Take care.